votes have been counted, and Sheriff Ross Mercurini was voted out by San Franciscans. Former Chief Deputy Vicki Hennessy won 61% of the vote, almost double what Mercurini received. Mercurini has been in the national spotlight recently after that Pier 14 shooting and his handling of the sanctuary city policy. Hennessy has a long history serving the city and was interim sheriff. That was while Mercurini was suspended earlier in his term after he was arrested for domestic violence charges. Hennessy is the first woman to be elected sheriff in San Francisco. In San Francisco, Mayor Ed Lee was easily reelected. He received 56% of the vote. Lee had no major opposition. He ran a very low-key campaign. The mayor has said housing and homelessness are his top priorities going forward. Another victory for the mayor last night, the passage of Proposition A. That was a bond measure to build affordable housing.
San Francisco voters faced 5 different measures, all meant to ease the housing crisis. It was a slate of possible solutions for a problem whose impact is felt Bay Area wide.
Well, in the end, voters agreed to build housing, but they didn't approve proposed restrictions. Prop A again passed a $310 million bond measure to construct affordable housing. So did Prop D, the Giants planned development that's in Mission Bay, and Prop K, which will expand the city's plans to develop unused public land.
But voters rejected Prop F, which would have placed new restrictions on short-term rentals. Airbnb spent an estimated $8 million to defeat that measure. And Prop I was also voted down. The so-called Mission Moratorium would have halted construction of market rate housing for 18 months.
Today in the 4x4, we are taking 4 minutes during the 4 to ask, where do we go from here? What is next?
What is next? And we welcome back Peter Cohen with the Council of Community Housing Organizations and Tim Cohen with the San Francisco Housing Action Coalition. Peter, let's start with you. I know you were a fan of that Mission Moratorium. It failed. So do you think in the end this is the end of the Mission District as we have seen it for so many decades?
No, it's not the end of the Mission District, and it's not the end of the fight, I would say. You know, it's important to realize that these issues don't go away just when you win or lose on November 3rd. I mean, obviously, what's driving the activism is the fact that the Mission District is changing dramatically. There was a report just released last week that shows the Latino population's dropped 27% in the last 10 years. The households with children have declined by 26%, et cetera. Those patterns are dramatically changing the character and the purpose of the mission and the soul, as they say, for the city. So I can expect that the activists who put this on the ballot are going to come back and push harder. I think we're going to have a new legislative opportunity. And, you know, the frustration I think that a lot of us felt is that this could have been done legislatively last spring, and it wasn't. The city is very politically divided. So here we are with a new chance perhaps to do some policy interventions at a legislative level going forward.
Well, Tim, to you now, voters said no. That's the side that you were on. So if no Mission Moratorium, then what is the solution for that area?
Well, you know, I'd say I probably agree with Peter on a lot of those points. We're pretty happy with how the election came out last night, but I think we're in a hiatus right now. I think that the issues that were on the ballot yesterday have not been resolved, and we'll be looking at them again next year, either in the June or November election. I think probably what we want to do is find out common ground and see if we can do some of these things legislatively rather than the incredible time and expenses for ballot initiative campaigns, which I'm not sure how productive that is. So, yeah, I think that we have a lot of work to do to get at the housing affordability crisis.
All right, let's talk about Prop A. I know you're talking about legislative stuff right there, but Prop A won pretty big. I believe it's 73% to 26%.
Yeah.
$310 million bond here. How do we make sure that money is spent properly? Where do you gentlemen want to see that money go specifically?
Well, I'll take that one on. I mean, as I mentioned when I was here last week, and with, Prop A in and of itself is a hugely important measure, and winning at 73% is no small feat. I mean, that was a 2/3 threshold. That, along with the surplus lands measure, Prop K, and I don't want to forget to be Proposition J, which is about protecting small businesses. I mean, we now have resources to actually put into building that infrastructure. It was a very prescriptive set of allocations for that money, from public housing to low-income affordable to home ownership programs to middle-income housing. So I think the tracking of that money is going to be very tight. There hasn't been any problems with money being lost in the shuffle, but I think we're going to see a lot of action over the next 3 to 5 years.
But where, Peter? I mean, San Francisco is not a big city. Where do we put put all this housing?
Yeah, well, you got to stretch it thin. A lot of it's going to be on the eastern side. That's where we've traditionally built most of our affordable housing. So you're going to see, neighborhoods in the south of Market and the Mission and the southeast that are going to probably have most of the affordable housing production. But I know there's a real interest, and Tim shares this, of trying to see affordable housing spread around the city. Maybe this will give a chance to use some of those resources elsewhere.
Well, Tim, you jump in on this. What say you?
Well, I generally agree with my friend Peter Cohen, but I think one of the things that's important to keep in mind is that while $310 million sounds like an awful lot of money, really it's a drop in the bucket relative to the challenges facing us, relative to the affordability needs that we're facing. It is incredibly expensive to build subsidized housing that bring down the cost of housing for people that aren't wealthy. So while Prop A was a very good step in the right direction, it's really not the entire answer. And the other solutions that we're working on, we're having trouble scaling them to the enormity of the challenge that we're facing.
And finally, last question, a quick answer from both of you. Prop F, why do you think it failed? Tim, you had no position on this, but Peter, you were supporting it. Why did Prop F fail? That was the one dealing with Airbnb.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just by the numbers. I mean, there was $8.4 million spent on the campaign. That was a 28-to-1 spending ratio. It was unfortunate that the distraction was around invasion and spying. The heart of Prop F was about getting the platforms to actually only list legally registered units. That would be a huge game changer. And if Airbnb and others would agree to that, we'd have a very different system locally. We're going to see a lot of pressure on the city to enforce, and hopefully some legislative increases next year. But that should have passed, and I disagree with Tim. I don't think we should just assume that the market's going to take care of our housing. We need to be much more aggressive, and Prop A was huge. We need a couple more Prop A's.
All right, we got to end it there, gentlemen. Peter Cohen, Tim Cohen, I'm glad you guys are friends in the end of everything. All right, appreciate you taking the time. KTVU.com has more information about Election Day and the results. Just look for the story on our homepage, and you'll find links to results for Bay Area counties who held elections yesterday.